All right, guys, welcome back to another video. It's your man, Jay Wills. So when you're trying to pick a smartphone nowadays, it's getting kind of tough out there because the competition is kind of lingering around for the budget game. It's kind of lingering around $100 to $200. And in that price range, you actually can get a lot. And here's a phone right here that does offer somewhat of a lot compared to other phones in this price range. It's starting with the hardware. This is a glass front and back. It's got the metal chassis. It's got a 5.7-inch display, and it's an HD plus display. It's basically 720p with the new aspect ratio. That's pretty much all it is. Has dual 13 megapixels on the rear and then a 13 megapixel on the front as well. So it's something to be desired by people who are on a budget. You want to get a lot of bang for that money that you're spending. Now, this isn't the default launcher. Even though this has stock Android, the aspect ratio on here only gives you 4 icons across. So I always put in on just a different launcher so I can get the 5 icons across and up and down. But this is the stock icon pack here. This is what it looks like. This is basically just a stock Android Oreo device, and it'll provide mostly everything you need for the performance and the price tag. I want to start off with a few things that I wish would have been different on this phone right here. It's not that the phone is bad or anything, but it's still working with what is being offered here. So first of all, there's no headphone jack, and that's getting kind of rare to not see a headphone jack on quote unquote budget devices. Because there are still some flagships out there that have a headphone jack, but this one doesn't have one. And their reasoning behind not putting it in there, I didn't ask, but they don't have a headphone jack. But, you know, there's some things to be liked about this phone right here. But that's one thing I think should have been different. It should have offered a headphone jack if it is, in fact, inside of the budget realm, or this is the area that they're shooting for, which it is. The G3, this is the latest G3, and there's also a G3 Plus and a G4 coming as well. The difference in the G3 Plus and the G3, folks, this is $199 and the G3 Plus is $229, and it's got a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. That's pretty much the only thing I could see that was pretty much different in the devices. They're pretty much the same with just a bigger battery in the G3 Plus for 30 more bucks. So it's totally worth paying 30 bucks extra to get a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. But I will say with this setup right here, you probably wouldn't need to, depending on who you are. And if I'm able to pull a lot of battery time out of this phone, I'm pretty sure you can too. So not including a headphone jack, kind of strange for them to do that. But they do offer Type-C, and it's a single loudspeaker down here. It's not a dual speaker setup. But another thing that I think could have been different, and I don't know why it wasn't there, but just having this a 1080p display. This is a HD plus display, as I said at the beginning. So it is a 720p display, just because the plus is because of the new aspect ratio. With that being said, this is a great display. It's not a bad display at all. I have no quarrels about this display at all. It's really good. This is the first 720p display that I've liked in the past. I've liked plenty of them, and a lot of them were AMOLED, and I like some of the Motorola 720p displays. This one is no exception. It's actually really, really solid. The angles for viewing video and content and everything is really good. I don't have any complaints about it. For that much, though, I still wish it would have been a 1080p display. Now, another thing is the processor inside. Now, the processor inside of here is a Helio P25. Now, I really believe that they could have put at least a Snapdragon 425 or the Helio P60. That would have been really, really nice for them to do that. But in fact, they didn't. So it's really not that big of a deal. And I think I misspoke on the rear camera. One of these is a 13 and one is a 5. And there's a front 13. I'm sorry about that. So the dual 13s is one on the back and with a 5, and then one on the front is a 13. My apologies for that. But you do get 1080p recording. You know, it's just kind of, that's not something to get onto them. But it's, you know, I think if you're going to have a phone that has a camera that can record at a higher resolution, you know, I've always said it's not just this phone. I just think that if you're going to record in 1080p, I want to be able to view it in 1080p on the device, or, you know, when I'm watching it on YouTube or whatever the case may be. So, you know, that's not very many gripes from me, just those 3 things. And this is coming from like over a month later. I think I've had this thing. And It's been consistent in the performance. The performance is really good. I have no issues with performance, even though I said I wish it would have had something different than a Helio P25. The Helio P25 in this device is working great because it has 4 gigs of RAM, and then you've got 64 gigs onboard storage with an SD card. So that's a huge plus. The fact that it has 4 gigs of RAM, it needs it, because I've got other phones that have the Helio P25 and they just don't run as smooth over time. They just kind of bog down quickly. So the fact that this one has 4 gigs of RAM, it really helps. There's some flagships out there that have 4 gigs of RAM that cost 4 to 5 times the cost of this. So they did that right. It's got Type-C, it's got NFC, which is something that people truly want in a smartphone nowadays. It doesn't have Bluetooth 5.0, but that's fine. 4.2 is fine. But how's the phone been overall? It's been great, man. I haven't had any complaints about it, really. The personal gripes that I just explained were minimal at best. You know, those are things that don't affect the phone's performance at all, the headphone jack and all that. I love the new design, the colors, some of these new colors. This is Tiger's Eye. They have a red one now for this one. You do have a fingerprint reader, which is really good. I'm going to just slide my rings over here and take a photo and show you real time what the camera is like. This is real time what the camera's like. I got LEDs going, so it might be kind of difficult for this to handle in this camera. It's actually going to wash it out. So I'm going to take it a little off camera here just so you can see, and then I'll show you what it comes out to look like. And I'm doing this because the cameras are really good. And I didn't do like a portrait shot or anything like that. I just held it up and focused on my ring. And this is the type of footage that you can expect. Now over camera, it probably doesn't look that great, but it actually blurs out the backgrounds really easy. And it takes a really good photo. I said that because I really like the cameras on this thing. I think they're really good cameras on the rear. Are they mind-blowing? No, of course not. They're not mind-blowing. But the fact that they have those cameras back there, the 13 and the 5, it can really get some really good portrait shots. I've tested the camera over and over and over again, and it's a good camera on the rear. That 13 megapixel does very well, and that 5 megapixel does help with the depth sensor. But it's a fantastic camera for the price. Are there cameras out there in this price range that are better? Oh yes, but are they officially released in the U.S.? No. There's not very many phones in the $200 price range that are less that are in the U.S. that has, you know, great cameras. These cameras on this phone are very decent and definitely doable for social media. I'm in a low light area with a couple of LEDs going, and it struggled a little bit with the bright light. It kind of washes it out in direct lighting when you're trying to take a photo. But at the same time, in broad daylight, it's perfect. And then when I move my picture over out of the way, and got a realistic shot, it's great. I don't have a problem with it. So using this phone for a month, kind of as a third or fourth device, it's been good. Battery life on this thing is obviously good because it's a 720p display, and it is just rocking a 3000 milliamp hour battery inside with a Helio P25. So I don't think you'd be disappointed with this phone. It does work on LTE for the US. It'll work on Cricket and Metro and all these other places and things like that. So if you hurry when you go to the website, I'll put the link down below. You can use a code ACC30. You can get 30% off at your checkout for accessories. And that's something that when you find a phone that's new, there's not a lot of accessories for it. And that's a huge bummer. So when you find phones like this that are just trying to hit the market, just trying to get launched, get their feet wet, you want to buy a case for it. So some phones, now this does come with a case in the box, but they do in fact have a ton of accessories for this phone already. So you've got your 3.5 millimeter to Type-C adapter already out. You've got cases by Tudia. You got a tempered glass for it. There's ways to outfit this, if you will, and you'll be satisfied with it, man. Also, right now, I believe you get 3 months of free service from Mint Mobile, so jump on that. This is a good phone. I really like it. It's a good little daily driver for a person that doesn't want to. You don't even have to be on a budget. You just not want to spend a lot of money. And this is a good look, man. It's a beautiful device. It performs well. I don't have any complaints about it at this point, man. Just those little gripes that I brought out, but I'm not having any problems with the software. The phone is performing well. When watching content, the speaker is definitely kind of loud for it to be a single bottom firing speaker. But overall, I needed to give you a follow-up on this phone because it's been pretty decent over time, man. I mean, I didn't take it to CES. I should have, but nonetheless, we're kicking it back off again. And I think you'd probably be impressed with this. 3 months of service free right now and 30% off accessories.